When it comes to figuring out what you want, like I'm talking about your desires, one thing that's super important is to focus on what it is that you want before you get all stuck and in a spin about how you're going to make it happen. Because if you start focusing on how before the what is foundational and you're really committed to it, you will risk squishing your dreams because the how gets so complicated. You can come up with all these excuses. Better to stick with what first until it's really foundational.
Live from the Never Too Late stage in sunny Sarasota, Florida, it's the Never Too Late Show! Tonight's guest proves it's never too late to reinvent yourself and do what you love. And now, helping women turn what now into watch this, here's your host, Teresa Bueno.
If you're a woman in midlife who wants more purpose, more joy, or a real reinvention after 50, this episode is going to hit home. Today, I'm talking with Suzy Rosenstein, Master Certified Life Coach and the host of the top midlife podcast, Women in the Middle. With over 2 million downloads, Suzy is a rock star leading voice who helps women over 50 create a meaningful next chapter. And she doesn't just teach midlife reinvention, she lived it herself. After decades in public health, she reached a turning point that literally pushed her into a completely new life. Today, we're diving into her influences, the midlife mindset shifts that changed everything, the myths that keep women stuck, and how to find clarity and possibility when you want to reinvent your life after 50. So join me in welcoming Suzy Rosenstein.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. This is just awesome. You're like one of my heroes. So it's just really great to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. It really is a pleasure.
Okay, well, I want to jump in because I know that our viewers are very eager to hear what you have to say. And before we get into like what's going on right now, like a contemporary situation, I'd like to know, what were you like as a little girl? I just imagine that you were the cutest, sweetest little girl. That's like my image. But tell me the truth. Let's go behind the curtain. What was Suzy like when she was a little girl?
Well, I'm a firstborn. Do I need to say anything else? And I'm a Leo.
Yeah.
I liked to do all the right things and I liked to have attention and I was a good student and I enjoyed music. So I got involved in band as soon as I could. So that was when I was 10. But I was very curious, I was creative, and I like to ask a lot of questions. I was always known for asking a lot of questions. And sometimes people made fun of me for that, but it turned out to be a good thing later in life.
Mm. Did you have brothers and sisters?
I have four younger sisters. I had a rough childhood, and actually, that is related to my why.
Mm.
And so, what happened for me was my mother passed when I was 5,
Wow.
and my father passed when I was 12.
Ooh.
So, after my mother died, my father remarried, and my stepmother raised me. And we started out as two kids, and then there were five kids with the second marriage. But what happened was, like my parents were only 32 and 41. And so I kind of had a front row seat in watching four grandparents grieve, grieve the passing of their young adult children. And that's an unusual thing. I
Very,
mean, my
yeah.
story's unusual anyway, right? But it's really unusual to watch four grandparents in that situation. And what I started to appreciate as a coach, I didn't put this all together until the last 10 years. And I'm 62 now. But as a coach, I started to meet a lot of midlife women. And I started to see how negative they were about what was possible and about, body changes and just lots of negativity. And it really bothered me. And then I started to figure out, why does all this negativity bother me? Because my parents didn't have the privilege of aging. They didn't get the gift of aging. And it just, when I talk to people and they start being negative, and I had some negativity too, and some that I wasn't aware of. But I just see so much possibility. But when you have a lot of negative thoughts about aging, you don't see those same possibilities because that kind of thinking makes you feel very differently. So it just really left me with a very important lesson to take away and learn from is that if you're alive, you have the gift of aging. If you're alive, you have the privilege to age. And being aware of this and being aware of wasting valuable time, it's really something you need to consider because you want to be very intentional as you age. And if you're just winging it, not even aware of a lot of negative thoughts that you have, you can waste a lot of time.
So that was what I was going to ask you. Do you think, looking back, any personality traits that are sparks that showed up for you as a child that are part of what you're doing now today with women in midlife?
Oh my gosh, Teresa, I can't believe you asked that question that way because I have two podcasts. And as I mentioned briefly, I was always known for asking questions. And so what's happened is I didn't appreciate how much that was related to what I'm doing now and how I've gravitated toward having a podcast about loving life after 50. But when I really think back, I asked for a tape recorder for my 8th birthday, and I just loved making commercials and doing silly things on the tape recorder, but I loved it. I've always loved voice. I loved talk radio and NPR and CBC in Canada, always gravitating toward that. That more than video. Like I wasn't the type of kid that made movies. I was the type of kid who made audio commercials. I just really, really loved that.
Yeah.
And then that ability to ask good questioners, to ask good questions and become a really good listener is exactly related to what I do now as a coach and as a podcast host.
Oh, absolutely. It's like also, I think there's a lot of power in listening for what's in the unsaid as well as the said. And
Definitely.
listening skills, I think, are highly underrated. I think it was one of the things that I wish there was more in school and more uh, training for people to learn to listen. Um, and that partnership, of course, being an improviser, that is fundamental. That is key whenever you're on stage and you're making up everything. It really is a brick upon brick process. I say something, my scene partner says something, now I get to respond to what that was said. And the thing about it is improv is just a microcosm of life. It's just a little slice of life, so it's such a powerful, powerful thing, listening. So I love that you recognize that as an early age. I wish more people did.
I really did. And I didn't see how it all came together until, like I said, recently, like the last few years.
Yeah.
But then it was so obvious. And I think when people are stuck with what their passion is and not knowing what they want to do, it's really wise to look to look for clues from your life. Because if you liked something then, it's highly likely you're going to enjoy it now too.
So tell me, as we move on into your young adulthood, when did you first feel that pull? Maybe there's more. Did you have this sense that there was something you were looking for, something that you were here for?
Yes, and it was vague at the beginning. I was very happy in my career. I worked in health education for 27 years. And one of those jobs was 19 years. It was like a book publishing department at a hospital. And I really loved my work until I didn't. So the last 5 years of that 27 years in that field, I started to feel um, like something was off and I couldn't put my finger on it because honestly, I loved my job. I loved the place I worked. It was very strange. And then finally, I realized the feeling was not content. I was no longer content where I had been content for the longest time. And it took 5 years. I was stuck for 5 years where I was asking everybody I knew, what should I do? As if other people know what I should do more than I know myself. And I was very curious about it and very confused. I felt like I was in a spin. And I really had a strong sense the deeper I got into it that I knew I was meant for more. I just didn't even know how to figure it out. This was before I knew anything about coaching. I hadn't discovered podcasts yet. Even with a psychology background, I thought I should know more and I'd be able to sort it out, but it really was harder than I imagined. And it took time. Eventually I did make a list. I'm like, okay, Suzy. I sat down. I remember I was at my desk at my last job. I sat down and I'm like, I had a piece of paper. I'm just like, write down all the stuff you want, write down all the stuff you like. Just write stuff down without editing it, without judgment, and just see what comes up. And in that moment, I was able to figure out that I missed working with directly with people,
Mm.
that was a skill I had, and that in all of my jobs I was like in the intermediary phase. I wasn't not place the intermediary space, helping other professionals, doing things at a community level, but not doing things with the people who needed help. And so I didn't know what I wanted, but I'm like, you know what, I think I need to be with people more.
Because I was going to ask you, because I think a lot of people, I think a lot of women, particularly, especially midlife women, your women, women in the middle, I think a lot get to that point, and I think a lot of our listeners and viewers are there, that you want more, but you're not sure
Yeah.
what it is. Is that discontent? It's something that philosophers have called that sacred yearning. And I felt it in my solar plexus. There was just like this there, like I felt it in my body. And but it was like, what is it? Let me ask you this. How would you define content? Could someone know when they are or they are not? Like, what would that be like, do you think?
It felt to me like just a calm happiness. Like I wasn't looking for more. I was very satisfied with my job, and I didn't think, I wasn't looking at job ads. I wasn't doing anything else. I had a very full life with volunteering too. And I was playing in a band at that time. Like I was
You
very
were?
busy. Well, I play saxophone. It was a
Oh,
community band, but yes, I've been in band most of my life. Right now, I'm not in a band, but I started playing when I was 10, and I've played consistently until the last few years. And the reason I'm not playing now is because I find being in the online space, I sit so much. I just can't sit another 3 hours a week at a band in a
yeah,
concert or practicing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I needed to do something else where I'm moving in those other times. So right now I'm not, but I know I'm going to be going back for sure.
yeah. Though I
But
didn't mean to pull this off. They just like really, I try to think about what our listeners would be one like, whoa, wait, you were in a band? What's that?
uh,
You know?
what some of my happiest moments have been related to band. And I grew up in the Pennsylvania area, and marching band was a big deal. I went to a really big high school. They also had a competitive jazz band as well as competitive marching band. And I got so much pleasure out of it. And that was one of the places I was known for asking questions, because I was a saxophone section leader during the marching band piece, and I was the one always asking questions, about the placement on the field and what my sax section was supposed to be doing musically and marching wise. And then when I went to university, I was in the marching band. And even in grad school, I found a jazz marching band, not a marching band, a jazz band. And then as I, grew older, there are community band options, and it's been a mainstay. So I think I just wasn't looking for more. I was very satisfied. Part of it too was that I had three kids very close in age, and during that phase of my life, I was very, very busy with them too. But as it's so common, once the kids get older, parts of your life that you just took for granted, you knew what was going on. There were social opportunities, just saying hi to people and having little chit chats in the hallways and soccer practice and this and that. So that stuff goes away when the kids graduate. And then also, I volunteered so much in things that were related to their lives. And so that volunteer stuff changed. And you have more time to really see what you're doing, how you're spending your time, how you feel when you're doing that work. And that's when I started to notice it. I'm not content. It's not okay anymore. And I feel like I'm wasting valuable time. That was what was in my mind constantly. You are wasting valuable time. You're meant for more. You can make more of a contribution. There's more meaningful things you could be doing. And that message got through. And then I got laid off.
Mm,
So then as it was happening, it was very stressful, but I had this other voice going on saying, this is the gift you couldn't give yourself. This is the gift you couldn't give yourself. And I got my wits about me in the next 6 months or whatever. And I took a career course at the community level, and I just started to think a little bit differently. And then I met somebody in the coaching space. So then I had somebody to actually talk to about coaching and about how to train. And, I wasn't really too concerned about how to use it as to be an entrepreneur. Although that was the other thing going on behind the scenes. I had been an entrepreneur since I was 12 with calligraphy. I did calligraphy for
oh,
wedding envelopes and things. And then I had tried little entrepreneurial ventures throughout the years. And I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I was way too afraid. It felt too indulgent without a guarantee that it
Mm-hmm.
would be
Mm-hmm.
successful.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm the one with the dental benefits. How can I do something like this? You know?
I know I hear people speak about that right now. Well, the next job, I'm thinking about going to work for the school system because they have really good benefits, and it's like, okay, but what about the spark? What about turns you on? What like lights your life up? I'm pretty sure it's not dental benefits, but who am I to judge? But I'm just saying, I don't think that that's it. So I love that. And I love also, I want to point to, because you had the benefit that a lot of listeners don't have, and that is of having an entrepreneurial experience. You knew
Yes.
what it was. And so many of our listeners and viewers don't. They've been in corporate their whole lives, and now they're looking at what's next. And it can look pretty scary. So, how do you address that from an inspirational perspective? I'm not talking about so much about like what to do, but from a mindset perspective of someone who is wants to go and do something that they feel the calling,
Hmm.
but they're so concerned about the security of like
Hmm.
stepping out. And also, I don't know, you can speak to this, I'm sure. Did you have people saying to you, "What the heck are you thinking about, Suzy? You're going to go open this You need to get a job, girl."
I didn't really have too many people saying that, but I'm not surrounded by entrepreneurs. That's for sure. I'm like, I interview a lot of people too, and a lot of them have told me. I interviewed somebody yesterday who said, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. And I think that would really help somebody, but it doesn't mean you can't. So, what I have seen and what I coach on a lot is perfectionism and how we don't appreciate how much we focus on it and how much we crave certainty. So, this is a huge deal. I wanted what I really wanted was a guaranteed future self and future business wrapped up in a Tiffany bow in a box, just given to me. Right. And I didn't want any risk and I didn't want any uncertainty. But really, if you really think about it, you'll agree, I think, that not much is certain, like almost nothing is certain. And, but we crave it. We crave it. The other thing I ask clients to do is just do a quick Google search on success after 50. They're all talking about failure and how much they learned from failure and how failure is just another opportunity to learn. So, what I think is really important is to appreciate that about yourself. Like, why are you afraid? Ask yourself basic questions. What are you making failure mean?
Let me
And
ask you that.
mhm.
What did you make failure mean? When you were looking at reinvention after 50, uh, you had fears and uncertainties, right? I mean, you weren't, or were you fearless? Were you
Oh,
fearless?
no, I'm very afraid.
Okay.
Very afraid of all
So,
kinds of things.
what did you make it mean?
Well, I think in the end, it means embarrassment,
Yep.
lack of worth, lack of value. What am I going to say? What are people going to think? So why do you care about that? Because of disapproval. And in the end, it's about not belonging. If you're successful, you belong. If you're not successful, you don't belong. That's what I was interpreting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really all about uncovering what it is you think about failure. What do you think? A lot of us are afraid of success too.
Yes.
I can't believe how afraid I am of stuff. It's really been surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, about anything that's out of the ordinary, can be fear inducing. It's just like the unknown, just the unknown itself, regardless
Yes.
of,
And that's why change is so difficult,
yeah.
right? Because it is unknown. And of course, you can't be as confident when you're doing something brand new because you don't have the experience of doing it. But the
Oh,
other thing is that we want this certainty. So that means we want the whole plan. So when we last made a big plan, most of us were in our 20s or 30s. We're thinking, okay, I got some training, or I have a career direction, or I have a certification or a degree or a profession, and I'm just going to set out and I'm going to think about my main goals, whatever I want. If you want to get married, if you want to live in a certain city, if you want to purchase a home, start your retirement, people tend to have some ideas early on, have a family, not have a family, like all of these things. And then we set out and we move toward accomplishing these goals. And usually that kind of stuff takes a few decades. And then we're here where we are now in midlife. And it's like, okay, I accomplished a lot of that stuff. Now what? And we're so disconnected with ourselves that we don't, it's so common not to know what we want. And so, one of the best strategies, I think, is the next best step. Because a lot of us, we want something planned out for the next 20, 30 years. And when we're older, we don't need a plan that's usually as long as the plan that we needed the last time we did this.
Yeah, I want to back up just a little bit and ask you this. When a woman is craving a midlife change, and she is concerned about uncertainty and safety, what's the first mindset shift that's needed? Because no matter what the coaching is or the suggestions, there can always be that mental, yeah, but, like we were talking about before. Like,
Yes.
so what do you think the mindset shift
The
that's
mindset,
needed?
I think it has to be something that creates a feeling that helps you lean in instead of pull back. Okay, so
Mhm.
thoughts and feelings are always connected. So we want to think something that creates a feeling that helps us move toward.
What was your mindset shift that allowed you to move forward?
Very simple, that I'm open to the idea that coaching is going to work out for me in some capacity. I didn't know if I wanted to work for somebody else. I didn't know if I wanted my own business. I didn't know if I was just going to be taking a course and then moving on to the next thing. But we typically can't figure things out behind our computer or at the kitchen table. We need to go meet some people. We need to do some things. We need to get more data because sometimes all it takes is meeting somebody new or hearing a talk and thinking, oh my gosh, like it just changes the
Yeah.
way you think, or you learn about something that was possible that you didn't have a clue was even possible. So I like thoughts. You got to try thoughts on. It's kind of like a dress or new coat. You want to try it on because my thought might not create the same kind of feeling state for you as it did for me in that moment. But you'd have to really identify what's it going to take for you? What feeling state is it going to take for you to go to a networking group where you don't know anybody? What's it going to take for you to lean in and take the next best step? So if you always wanted to travel and you always tell yourself that you can't, why? Be curious about what you're thinking. Why do I think that?
Yeah, I
What
think,
does it mean to me that I can't do it? So start to be curious and come up with some desires. And if it's a business related thing, do get some new data. How are you going to get that data? One of my clients once decided that she was going to volunteer at a local business doing the thing that she was curious about doing herself. It was organizing in that case. And then she investigated certifications and then she did some volunteer work with somebody doing that work. That gave her new data,
oh, yeah, I'm sure it did.
right? That's different
Yeah.
than you just looking up online. Oh, I can take these certifications or I can go to this place. Sometimes it's a documentary. So, how are all the ways that you can get more information on that thing? When we grew up, it was all about the information interview. We got to find somebody in our network or in our friends' network that would offer to speak to us for a half hour on the phone,
Yeah.
right? So now people use LinkedIn a lot more, but one thing is talking to people, then that's a great start, but also get out of your house and talk to people.
Which brings me to another thing that just fits in because we started off talking about the power of listening. And now you're bringing in another layer of that, which is the power of curiosity,
Yes.
the power of questioning, and even questioning yourself. Why am I reacting this way? What is the worst that could happen here? They would say, whatever, you're ugly and your mother dresses you funny. Will that kill me? No, it's like being curious about it. And I think we've been dancing around. And I think this other thing that's really super important is community
Yes.
and having a community of like minded people. There's really one of the most powerful things I believe that there is, especially for someone who is like going through a transition. Women in a midlife transition, they're out there and we're out there in lots of numbers, but we don't have the easy way to find each other like we did when we all had kids in the fourth grade or
Yeah.
whatever. So have you noticed that? And what did you do for your community whenever you were going? How did you get support from other people? Tell us about that.
Well, when I got laid off, so all of a sudden I was home, so I didn't have any structure. A lot of people will start to make a change while they're employed, but I was like, okay, now I'm off. And I started to just try to meet with people very slowly, like maybe once a week, go to coffee with somebody just to get out a little bit. But I wasn't I have a pretty rich community anyway. So that one wasn't huge for me. And I wasn't an entrepreneur yet. But once I became an entrepreneur, I realized that the midlife women were really wanting community. And it was something I didn't fully appreciate because I wasn't thinking about it so much as at a transition.
Mm.
And what's happened in my group, the Women in the Middle Academy, that's what absolutely inspired it. And it's not just that we do the coaching work together and the accountability work, but we also have a social call just to chat, just to
Yeah.
shoot the talk.
Bull.
Yeah, so we have the group, and what everybody has said, it's very consistent that it doesn't matter what somebody is talking about. It's relevant in some way to my life because even though there's a broad range of midlife, it's still we're dealing with the same stuff because midlife is age and stage. It's not just age. It's this transition stuff, the way I look at it. So it's been really valuable. And it doesn't matter if they're talking about their aging parents, it doesn't matter what it is. We all have it in common. Oh, when the adult kids move back, when the adult kids leave, you're not alone. And it is so comforting if you can get with an authentic community where people don't mind really being themselves and really talking about what's going on for them.
It's so powerful. I have to ask you this. You're known for saying act your shoes size, not your age.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that mean? How does it come into play in thriving in midlife and embracing a more joyful next chapter?
Okay, let's think about it for a second. What size is your shoe?
I am a 6.5.
Me too.
Yay.
Okay, so and I am 62. So let's just look at that. I could act 62, and when I'm putting it in quotes, right? Act
Yep.
62, the way you think a 62-year-old should act versus acting 6.5. Now, just think about what life was like when you were 6.5. And maybe if you're watching right now, maybe you're a size 7, maybe you're a size 9, 10, whatever. It's very different than it is now, right? So when we were young, we were silly. We
Okay.
were playful. We were full of imagination. We were curious, like automatically curious. We asked questions. We were very present. We didn't have a big giant to-do list, right? It was okay to be in the moment and to go play. Remember, we were told, go play for
Oh, yeah.
hours,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Don't come home.
That's the way it used to be. It's like, get out of the house.
Yeah, get out of here. Exactly. And we weren't worried about time. We weren't worried about that big list. And we played games. Play was a part of what we were about, right? But when we're older, what's going on now? Well, we're doing a lot of thinking. We're concerned about illness. Our bodies are changing. We have tons of responsibility. We have thoughts about running out of time and we have stuff we want to do. Worry about having regrets. We're very busy. And that thought, I'm busy, can really affect you. Whether, busy is defined by you. You're thinking about everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
You're very distracted, multitasking. We feel amazing when we're a multitasking queen because we're getting more done because we can be more productive and we value that and we feel more worthy when we do that. So if you really think about the positive effects of being more playful, I mean, those things come from acting your shoe size more than your age. So it's not that you need to be a total goofball and shirk all your responsibility, but it's just if you could be influenced a little bit more about the positive aspects of childhood that you could really benefit from if you brought them into your life more. And if you're just going to bring in one, let it be curiosity. Let yourself ask more questions. It's come up a few times already in our talk together. It's so great to just not believe everything you think, to be curious about yourself, be curious about your feelings, be curious about your behavior, and just decide, what am I making this mean? Is this working for me? Is this helping me lean into the things that I think are a priority at this point in my life? Do I like my reasons for thinking, feeling, doing these kinds of things right now? Ask these questions. You might want to journal. You might just want to pause and notice and think. Whatever it is, bringing that awareness to what's going on up there is always a good thing.
So let me ask, I'm curious, how do you bring play and joy into your life?
Oh my gosh, Teresa. Well, first of all, I have a wand that I use at my desk, and
I love
I
it.
give
It's
my
blue.
clients permission all day long.
Yes.
Everybody seems that they need more permission. I also have little prompts I'd like to introduce you to Midlife Possibility Girl. Here she is.
Oh, she's
Oh
so
my, there's a
cute.
little blur on my camera, but Midlife Possibility Girl is here. And I also have, I'd like to introduce you to my little squirrel because there are so many people our age who are just distracted by the shiny objects and other things going on.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one thing I do at work. But with my kids, I'm all about laughter. I mean, I know that when they were younger, it was more important for me to keep things a little bit sane. I have three boys, 3 and 3.5 years, very close in age, and it was kind of chaotic. But now I'm just trying to say yes to more things in terms of fun things and no to more things that aren't really priorities for me.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you, what is lighting up your life right now? What's inspiring you in this midlife journey that you're on?
Well, one of the things that's inspiring me is mindful doodling. So I trained 4 or 5 years as a certified Zentangle teacher, and Zentangle is a form of mindful doodling. And I've always been creative, and I've always just really wanted to bring more creativity and nature into my work. And Zentangle is inspired by nature, and I am bringing it into my work more and more. So I'm incorporating mindful doodling as well as it's not just a creative outlet because you don't need any art skills, but it's a tool to feel calmer and to think more clearly and to reconnect with what really matters. So I use it as a teaching tool, as a way to help people just be very aware of slowing down, not rushing, and being in the present moment. I also mentioned briefly, I try to bring nature into my work as much as possible. I am very excited about whale watching and nature photography, and I do what I can. And you might see a blurry sloth in the background, and
I
that's
see
because
him.
I have an upcoming retreat to Costa Rica where we will be going
Yes.
whale watching, and it's inspired by sloths and turtles to help remind us to slow down and be present. Just focus on relationships and being present.
Yeah.
It's really being present, slowing down
Mhm.
and watching for that thought, I'm too busy, and just like, are you really? Maybe you could plan a little bit better, or maybe just are you, I don't know, do you believe that you're too busy? What's this about?
And
Um,
like you could even schedule in, whenever I was a Remax broker, that's one of the things I always encouraged my agents to do is schedule me time, just like, and treat it just as importantly as you would any other appointment. It's just that treating ourselves with the value that we treat other people. Whoa, what a novel idea, huh?
Well, what exactly? This putting yourself first is simple and complex. And it all comes down to, I think, well, the thought work's required too, of course, but planning in advance. And that requires slowing down.
Yes.
So increasing time that's a regular time. I do it on Sunday nights and I do it for the week or 2 weeks typically. And just really look, is this the kind of pace I want to my week? Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything I could schedule out that's better, that
Mm-hmm.
makes more
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to get out of the house? How am I going to get on that walk? One of the things I had to do was to stop feeling guilty when I took a walk by myself because I have a dog.
Ah.
And sometimes when you walk the dog, you know,
Yeah,
it's a lot of sniffing and peeing and,
it's
it's
not a walk, especially
it,
for an old dog.
right, exactly. And so I felt so guilty. And so now I don't. And I have a little routine, a thing I do all the time when I walk. And it's guaranteed. I know how much time it's going to take, and it's not too long. I don't have the thoughts I'm too busy for a solid 20-minute walk at a quick pace, you know?
Yep. And I think it becomes like a habit. Like, do you have time to brush your teeth? It's like,
Always.
it's just when we get it to that point of just what I do,
Exactly.
then it stops being questioned. But, before we move on, I do have to speak to your upcoming Costa Rica
Yes.
retreat because it's going to be in Uvita, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I lived in Costa Rica for 10 years, and that was just hour and a half, 2 hours down from where our property was. And so I can speak to how beautiful that area is, how glorious, and what it's right there. The mountains come right to the water. So you can be up there and you can just see out this expanse of the Pacific Ocean. I get chill bumps just thinking about it.
Oh
It's
my gosh.
beautiful. It's beautiful. And I would encourage anyone who might be contemplating something like this to take advantage of it because I can only imagine how great it was. Just wonderful to be there, but to be there with a group of women like inquiring into these things and practicing mindfulness. Wow. People might have a hard time finding their way home.
Well, I went once before and I'm like, I'm not finished with Costa Rica.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other thing was, like all retreats are not created equal. You have to make sure that you pick a retreat that's where you're at, that's a good fit. Some of them
Hmm.
are action packed, some of them are very social and high energy.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about how you pick. And so I'm careful when I take retreats myself,
Hmm.
just to really make sure it's worth your while and it's really what you're looking for. And I love retreats. It's something I hope that I can continue to do at least once a year.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this one other thing before we get to our rapid fire. If every woman over 50 who's trying to reinvent her life could take away one message from you, what would it be?
I would say to be open to the emotion of envy, because envy is one of those feelings that you may not be that comfortable admitting you're experiencing, but there's so much goodness in envy because basically it's telling you what you want. And if
Exactly.
you're thinking about reinvention, you need a little direction and inspiration. And so, one of the best experiences I had with envy happened before I was a coach, and I draw on it all the time. I was just standing at a gym and I overheard a conversation with somebody I didn't know. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Because it was a man and he was very excited and had brochures and stuff. And he'd just come back from a whitewater rafting trip in the Grand Canyon. And I heard Grand Canyon because that was something I always wanted to do. And I just started listening and then I started asking questions. And I remember going home that night thinking, how did he figure this out? How did he figure out this whitewater rafting trip in the Grand Canyon? That's my trip. That's what I want to do. It was the weirdest way to think. Like, of course, other people can have great ideas and desires about what
Yeah.
they want to do, but my reaction was odd.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even ever discussed it with my husband. I hadn't even ever been on a website to look into it myself, nothing. And so that started a conversation. And the summer that my kids all went to camp, we made it happen. But it came from envy. I don't know that I would have hatched that idea on my own, but when I heard it, it was exactly what I wanted. And I hadn't even considered it.
Beautiful. I think you're so right that looking at other people and going, well, who does she think she is? And, those kinds of things. So that
Right.
is very most definitely a clue into something that is inside you, some sacred yearning that may be there.
Exactly.
What did you believe at 30 that you don't believe now? And how have you surprised yourself in life? I think they kind of go together.
Well, when I was 30, I wasn't married. And I had just started thinking, wow, if I want to get married, I probably have to make some changes. So I was in a very different space when I was 30, but I did start to think some things that were surprising. Like I remember a few times thinking things about people I thought were old, thinking that they wouldn't be interesting. One time I was at a dinner party and I was seated next to some people I didn't know, and I didn't know how old they were, but they'd been retired for a while, whatever that meant. And I'm like, oh, I'm not at the interesting end of the table. And then within like a minute of talking to this woman, I was in love with her. She just came back from an African safari. She had on the coolest jewelry and the coolest outfit. And she had so many stories. And I caught myself. This was probably 20 years ago. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe I had a thought that somebody wasn't going to be interesting because of age. And I caught myself. I was like, I just couldn't believe it. And then while I was a coach in the last 11 years, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, somebody said to me, wow, you don't look your age. And I thought to myself, I know. Isn't that great? I don't look my age. I don't know. Maybe it's because I have a round face, or maybe it's because I'm short. I don't know what it was, but I was like, ooh. And then I thought to myself afterwards, why do I think it's so great not to look my age? What's
Yeah.
wrong with looking my age? And since then, I've raised that with so many people, and so many of us are surprised that we have that belief that aging is worse than youth and
Oh,
that
yeah.
looking younger is better. But we're surprised we believe it. I was shocked because I felt, oh, yes, right. I don't look my
So
age.
I hear you. And I think that I was raised the way my mother and my grandmother were, it's like aging was like the worst thing that could
Oh,
happen to you.
wow.
It's just like, I'm sorry, sweetheart, but you're going to have to go through this. It's like childbirth or something with nothing good at the other end. You know, you're just going to get old and die. you're going to get wrinkled, and so on and so forth. And that was just like, I remember, just being like, oh no, not getting old, whatever. But, I think it would be so freaking cool. And I wish I could live long enough to do it, or I had enough influence in the world to be able to alter the way aging occurs for the Western culture.
Mm,
What if, like, there are cultures, it's possible where there are cultures who actually value their elderly.
yes. Mm-hmm.
I even had an experience of it even in Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, when I would live there for 10 years, they had lines for the elderly. The elderly are respected,
Mm,
and honored. It was like a privilege to be
wow.
able to help your elderly parents. It wasn't a problem. It was like, I'm taking care of my mother.
Mm,
Like, people were proud of that, and just a completely different attitude
yeah.
than,
It's very different.
incredible. So it's just like, I would love to be able to do that.
That's a good thing. I think you should do that. I think you should definitely do that.
I'll
And
work on that
something,
Sunday morning. I'll put it on my schedule.
oh, good, because that's just a little thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to share one more thing, though. You asked about surprises.
Please do.
So I've had a couple of surprises in my 50s that were jaw dropping in a good
Tell me.
way.
Tell me.
Okay. So the one of them was, this is crazy. So I mentioned before my mother passed when I was very young, and it was in 1968. And when your mother passes so young, and I was so young, you don't typically, I didn't have a lot of things from my mother or memories. So what happened was something came to me that was hers 70 years after she lost it out of the blue. I was just sitting here in this chair, minding my own business. And I got an email from somebody who said, I'm not related to you, but I have something that I think you're going to want. And I'm like, what?
That would
And
be
it turned
weird.
out her father had a metal detector and did metal detecting on the beaches of Rhode Island in the 90s and the early 2000s. And he collected coins. So when he passed, this woman and his daughter inherited all of this stuff, the coins and the weird little trinkets and things that he also collected, but they weren't organized. They were in boxes. So you can imagine when you're metal detecting, you find everything from paper clips to buttons to jewelry, keys, all kind of stuff. So he found a bracelet and my mother's name was engraved on it,
Wow.
including the year that she received it, which was June 9th, 1951. So
It's my
when his,
birthday.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. So she must have been, I think she was 15 in that year. She lost it, I figure, sometime in the 50s, because I know when she moved to New York. So I would imagine she lost it when she lived in Rhode Island. Anyway, this woman, his daughter, during COVID, went through the boxes of trinkets and she found the bracelet and noticed the engraving and went to Google and Googled my mother's name. And the only place that it popped up was on a genealogy site that I established, a family tree site in 1992. Anyway, she reached out to me and she sent me the bracelet. So it was a bit broken. It's sterling silver. I took it to a jeweler and I wear it to this day. And I made two of them, one for my sister and one for myself. And I was so grateful that she was so kind and took the time to reach out. And I interviewed her on my podcast, Women in the Middle, on an episode about kindness, where she divulged that she also lost her mother and she knew that it would be really meaningful to have something like that.
It's incredible. That's just, what a great story.
Yeah.
It's,
A
that's
lot of things
awesome.
had to line up for that bracelet to be found and make its way to me.
It certainly did.
Yeah.
Certainly. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing that with us. I find it like renewed evidence about the fact that anything is possible.
It was a mess when that email came in. I started to shake. I
Oh, yeah.
started to cry. Like
Yeah.
it was such a shock.
So I want to ask you then our rapid fire questions,
Okay.
and then I will let you go. So first, are you a coffee or tea person?
Oh, I'm coffee in the morning, tea in the afternoon.
Oh, you're a double dipper.
I
Okay.
am.
So last thing that made you laugh out loud.
The last thing that made me laugh out loud was something from one of my sisters, and it just cracked me up. And I started cracking up, and she started cracking up, and we laughed a lot out loud. It was great.
I love that.
It was a big one. It was a big laugh.
Oh, good. So let me ask you, if your life were a movie, what would it be titled?
I'm a glasses half full gal.
Oh, I love
And I
that.
think that's what it would be. Like, really, I am. I know I've had some very sad, difficult times, but do see the world as glass half full.
Love that. What's your favorite guilty pleasure?
My favorite guilty pleasure is avocados.
Well, that's not even that guilty. They're good for you.
I know, but I eat a lot of them.
Not a dozen, though, huh?
No, every time I read about avocados and what a healthy serving is, I eat a lot more than that per serving. I love avocados. They're so good.
Great. All right. Well, I can understand that. All right. So here's our last question. If you could have dinner with one person, living or not, who would it be?
Oh, that's easy. Larry David
Oh, yeah.
from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes,
I just think he's hilarious.
he
And
is.
I don't know what a dinner would be like with him. He probably wouldn't even want to go, but I just think he's hilarious. And his comedy has brought me so much pleasure over the years.
I love that. I love it. All right. So now then, speaking of comedy, here's your chance to share with us your favorite joke, ha, riddle, something that just always makes you smile.
Okay, here we go. What's the difference between Scooby-Doo and a marine biologist?
Tell me. I don't know.
Okay, what's the difference between Scooby-Doo and a marine biologist? One wags a tail and the other tags a whale.
Oh, I love puns. I can't help it. I just love puns. I love them.
Oh, I love whales so much. Last summer, I've been on whale watches since 1985, many of them. It's my thing. And I know a lot about whales.
Isn't that exciting?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
great.
I love that. Well, I've loved talking with you as well. And I have to mention that you had me as a guest on your podcast.
I did.
Yes, and it will be coming out at some point, I guess, in 2026.
Early 2026. Yep.
That's great. So thank you so much for being here with me today. It's been so much fun, so enlightening. You're such a pleasure. And I look forward to doing other stuff with you sometime.
I know, Teresa, we're kind of stuck together now. Now that
I,
I know who you are and where you are, I think you're awesome. And thank you so much for having me on. You know, it's so important for midlife women to feel happier and really love their lives as they age. There are challenging times and there are amazing happy times with tons of opportunity too. So it's so good to work in this space. It's so rewarding.
Indeed, it is. And we'll have well, you can tell us, is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best place for people to get in touch with me is probably the email on my website. My website is www.suzyrosenstein.com, and right at the top you'll see an email there. I also have a freebie. It's a quiz. It's a midlife quiz, which is great, and it's perfect for you if you are wanting to get out of your own way and understand what your future self is craving. And you can head over to www.midlifequiz.com and fill it out there. Perfect.
So thank you again. And for all of our viewers and listeners, just let me remind you, please, it's never too late to live a lit up life. So we'll see you next time on It's the Never Too Late Show. Thanks again, Suzy.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with us on It's the Never Too Late Show. Like, subscribe, and share the spark. Because reinvention's more fun with friends. Not sure what your spark is? Take the quiz at itsthenevertoolateshow.com. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and we'll catch you later. Later.